I'm Brother Tom. I'd like to share with you 5 of the favorite jokes that I've been told. This is video number 3. A pastor came to the church on Monday morning and found a dead donkey on the churchyard. He called the police department. They came out and took a look, and they said, well, it doesn't look like there was any foul play. You need to call the health department. He called the health department. They said, well, it's not really our responsibility. You need to call the sanitation department. He called the sanitation department. They said, well, we can't come out and get it until we have authorization from the mayor. Well, the pastor really didn't want to call the mayor because he was a very short-tempered man and very abusive, just hard to get along with. But finally the pastor decided he had to call the mayor if he wanted to get rid of that donkey on the churchyard. So he called the mayor, and sure enough, he was belligerent, he was short-tempered, he was profane, he was absolutely disgusting. And finally the mayor said to the pastor, by the way, preacher, why are you calling me? Isn't it your job to bury the dead? The pastor prayed and said, now, Lord, how do you want me to answer him? And then he got the answer. And he said, yes, Mr. Mayor, it is my job to bury the dead, but I'll always try to notify the next of kin before I do. Another pastor had 4 jars on his pulpit on Sunday morning, and he had 4 worms. He put the first worm in a jar of cigarette smoke. He put the second worm in a jar of alcohol. He put the third worm in a jar of chocolate syrup. And he put the 4th worm in a jar of good soil. At the close of the service, the pastor opened the jar that had the worm in it that was in the cigarette smoke. It was dead. He opened the jar that had the worm in the alcohol. It was dead. He opened the jar that had the worm in the chocolate syrup. It was dead. But in the 4th jar with the good soil was a healthy worm. So he said, now congregation, what is the lesson we can learn from this illustration? One of the ladies in the church rather meekly raised her hand and said, Pastor, I think I have the answer to that. He says, yes, ma'am, what is the answer? She said, well, if you smoke, and if you drink, and if you eat chocolate, you will not have worms. After church, a little boy came by and shook hands with the pastor and put a quarter in the pastor's hand. And he looked at it and he said, well, what's the quarter for, son? And he said, I'm giving it to you to help you. And he said, I don't understand. He said, well, the other day my daddy said that you're the poorest preacher he's ever seen. Another pastor had resigned his church because he had been called to another church. He had preached his last sermon. Everyone was greeting him and telling him goodbye. One of the ladies came up and said, oh, Pastor, I hate to see you leave our church. And he said, now, it's okay. It's okay. God's called me to this other church, and somewhere out there God has another preacher that he's going to bring to this church, and he's going to be even a better pastor than me. She said, that's what all the preachers say when they leave, and they keep getting worse and worse. Then number 5, the last one for this video. A pastor was visiting a man in the community, inviting him to church. He said, nope, never going to your church. He said, the first time I went to church, I was just a little bitty baby, and they sprinkled water in my face. The next time I went to church, I got married, got hitched to this old lady over here, and life has been miserable ever since. The pastor said, yeah, I understand. And I guess the next time you come to church, we're going to throw dirt in your face. Well, that's all for this time. May the Lord bless you. Bye for now.